422 is our SMS line, and if you're online, please use the hashtag the big question KE, and we'd love to read out your feedback at the end of this broadcast. I'll reintroduce my panel to you and our topic of discussion. Right next to me, to my right, is Ken Okoth. He's a Kibra MP. You're welcome, Ken. And next to him, after a little bit of a break from seeing you on our panels, is Kithure Kindiki, Senator Tharaka-Nithi, and if Jubilee would have their way, possibly the Deputy Speaker, would it be?
It's a proposal.
In the Senate?
It's a proposal from my party.
It's a proposal from your party, one I'm sure you're happy to accept should we get there.
Which I endorse.
Which Ken endorse?
Happily endorse.
Ken, are you
fully and enthusiastic? I'm not in the Senate, but I think Senator Kindiki is a fine person who can serve as a fine
from the member of parliament of Kibra.
I'm wishing him well.
Does it dip your chances?
I am wishing him well.
All right, gentlemen, let's get down to business. And tonight we want to discuss various issues surrounding preparations for the presidential election that is coming up in about 41 days. Now, another win for NASA we saw today. IEBC cleverly shifting power from the Ezra Chiloba-led secretariat to a project coordinating team that will be led by the man who deputized Chiloba, Marjan Hussein Marjan. Your thoughts on that? Is this what NASA wanted, Ken?
I would say it's a very good step, and I think given the circumstances, the short time remaining, it's probably a very prudent way for IEBC to do its internal human resource management, to bring in competent people that other people have that all sides can have confidence in, and it's a less risky approach than firing anyone or putting anyone on suspension. So I can see what they're doing there. I hope all sides will accept it. It's not the first time that the IEBC has done this. I think even under Issa Hassan, you found any time we had a set of by-elections, 2 or 3, they set a specific team to lead that as a project, and so it's not unique, and I think it could be a good compromise and middle ground. I think when you look at the number of people who've been mentioned there, none of them in this project team have been mentioned as having been part of the misadventure and the failures of the last
So it's not absolutely
election.
necessary for you then to see Ezra Chiloba and co behind the dock?
I think once the full ruling comes out and there'll be details of where IEBC failed or refused to follow the rule of law, committed irregularities and illegalities, you'll find, for instance, people in charge of technology, people in charge of transmissions, people in charge of compiling and tallying results who would have violated the law and should be held accountable. So they're not off the hook, but we're also so that's right. Past mistakes, because look, we gave IEBC 42 billion, the most expensive election probably in the world, to run a competent election. When it came to the presidential election, they mismanaged it. That caused the results for Raila Odinga to be cancelled, the results for Uhuru Kenyatta to be cancelled, the results for Abdul Badida to be cancelled, the results for Ekuru. Everybody's results were cancelled. So now we have a new election, but they've already wasted our money and time. It's going to cause us a lot of conflicts. Look at the timetable for exams. That's already causing a lot of anxiety.
Okay.
So they must be held accountable. But number 2, that's a separate issue. People who made mistakes and committed crimes and illegalities must be held accountable. But number 2 is, how does IEBC move on with confidence and create confidence in all the stakeholders that we have another team in place that can manage the election that has been ordered within the next 60 days. In fact, by the timeline they have proposed, we're looking at about 49 days.
41, I think?
41 days, yeah.
41 days.
41 days. I was wishing they'll give us 49.
No, apparently not. Kithure, your thoughts on this? Jubilee has been very adamant, when it comes to the commission, that no changes should be made. There's nothing wrong with that team as assembled. I mean, granted, the chairman has been quite clever in the way he did this. He picked from within the commission. Nobody has been fired. So technically, same commission, just a new panel.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me 1 second to condole with the relatives who lost the children in Moi Girls Kibra. Even as we politic, the country is still mourning.
Absolutely, yeah.
Having said that, 2 things. One, for us in Jubilee, our position is clear. There was a ruling which we disagree with, but which we will respect because that's what the law demands of us. That ruling says IEBC shall supervise the elections. So IEBC must be in place to supervise the election. As to the details of human resource and who is doing what, it's not our business. That's not our business. We just want the commission to supervise elections.
You don't think Chebukati's decision was influenced by
No. What's our position? I don't know. We don't know. We wouldn't know. IEBC is independent. They should not be influenced by NASA or Jubilee or anybody. They are an independent commission. Our position has been any attempt to interfere with the presence and existence of the commission will not only be illegal, but will also subvert the very ruling that NASA is hanging on. So our position is, we don't care who is given what role within IEBC, that's their internal human resource issue, but the commission as a corporate body must be in existence to supervise the election on the 17th of October without any change.
And so you're comfortable with this. Ken, the head of ICT, at least by this new decision, Albert Gogo, will be under the direct supervision of Chebukati. Does this give NASA more confidence, in particular, when it comes to the running of technology? Because just yesterday, your CEO was here and said all ICT staff must go.
Let me just agree with something that Senator Kindiki has said, that and there's no disagreement on this. We all agree that the court said the IEBC shall run a new election, within 60 days. So the commission, as you define, is the commissioners. The secretariat are there to work, but it's the commissioners who take the responsibility. And NASA is not asking at this point for the commission to be disbanded. Why? Because if you ask for the commission to be disbanded, it would really make then the ruling we got futile, as he said, because then there will be no commission and there's no process at that stage to appoint a new commission. So nobody, I think, within NASA who's reasonable is asking for the commission to be disbanded.
However, just without interfering with my brother's flow of thought, demanding human resource changes, especially at the secretariat, by NASA amounts to interfering with the working of an independent commission. Is actually an affront of the law by NASA.
I think,
and it seems to
because you can't tell the commission we want so and so to be in charge of ICT, we don't want so and so, we want the watchman transferred to go and cook, we want the cook to go and do I don't know what. That is interference, manifest.
Let me tell you.
As I have said, for us in Jubilee, we are not interested in who is doing what at IEBC. What we are interested in, the IEBC must be insulated from any invasion to ensure that the commission in its entirety, including the staff, are able to deliver.
But just a minute ago, I asked you whether you think that the decision made by Chebukati today was influenced by the demands of NASA, what you're calling interference, and you said you don't care.
If it was, then that's a violation of the law. I hope it wasn't. And we are saying if it was their own way of reorganizing their workings, it's up to them. We are not interested really in what they do, but they must be there to deliver an election. But if it was a reaction to NASA's demands, then already NASA is in contravention of the Constitution.
I think that's interesting of Senator Kindiki to say, but the reality is, if you start talking about interference, the senator himself knows that principles of good governance involve an idea of public participation and stakeholder engagement. Even in his own leadership in his county, he knows to get things moving well. Even in the caucuses he leads, even in his role as a leader within the Senate, he knows stakeholder participation, public participation and engagement makes sense. There is no higher stakeholders than the political parties in this presidential campaign. So our views must be heard the same way the president and his deputy have been going around the country sharing their views and opinions. In fact, if he argues, and the logic is basic, Jubilee telling IEBC what not to do, and or what they prefer them not to do, as well as his claim and argument that NASA telling IEBC what we would like them to do is the same interference. So if it's interference, it's interference.
Not
yes, it's all the same. But let me tell you why it matters. The fact of the matter is that in the court rulings, and I went to court on both days, and including the final day of the ruling, one of the reports that came up, for instance, was a report on the ICT components and the access to the servers and things like that. There were specific individuals at IEBC whose fingerprints, digital fingerprints and access to those systems were found. And then you could ask, who was authorizing this peculiar or questionable access? What kind of activities were happening within the server? And if they failed in their supervision, I think one of the key things is Chebukati to take responsibility.
So if I return to my original question, when I was talking about Albert Gogo working directly under Chebukati and whether that builds more confidence in the way IT systems will be run, what is your answer? That Chebukati himself has a case to answer to begin with?
I think Chebukati has learned that he cannot afford to be hands-off. He's the chairperson, and the buck stops at him as the head of that commission. And when the servers are found to have traces of use of his login 9,000 times in so many different locations, which he can't vouch for himself, it leaves him with egg on his face. So he wants to supervise and keep a tight rein on that. And I'll tell you, political opinions aside and simple, it really brings us back down to three parts of the three clauses in the Constitution. Article 86. It says that every election, the IEBC shall ensure that whatever voting method is used, the system is simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, and transparent. When we went to court, IEBC's lawyers and their own affidavits replying to the questions raised couldn't respond and guarantee that simple standard. Number two, it says that IEBC shall ensure that the votes cast are counted, tabulated, and the results announced promptly by the presiding officer at each polling station. And C, the results from polling stations are openly and accurately collated and promptly announced by the returning officer. And D, appropriate structures and mechanisms to eliminate electoral malpractice are put in place, including the safekeeping of election material. So the elections are all processed,
structuring it according to
that they failed to, and now they have to fix it and deliver to meet that constitutional
Okay, fair
standard.
enough. So it seems that we're all agreed on that. But, Kithure, one of the things that has come out in this debate, and even yesterday on Monday Special, was Jubilee almost beginning to sound a little bit apathetic to however the poll is run. That they really don't care how it is run as long as, on October 17th there is a poll. So by whoever, however, yet NASA is saying, look, we want to be properly engaged as stakeholders. We have a voice in this process. And that may be sending a bit of a confusing signal even to your supporters. How is it that NASA has a raft of issues that they want addressed in order to go into a credible election? Jubilee just says, just bring the election.
A couple of points. Number one, we have trust in institutions. All of them, including institutions with which we disagree, like the Supreme Court, which miraculously says that, and supported by Ken Okoth and company, that the voting was done. There is a problem around servers and transmission. Repeat the election. Those votes are intact. Why can't we count them? Why can't we? The vote was not electronic. It was manual. Why can't we count? So nevertheless, we trust and we have respect for institutions. That's the reason why Jubilee is saying it's not our business to tell IEBC who they employ as a presiding officer or as a clerk or as a watchman or etc. Our defense on IEBC and other institutions, and especially now about IEBC, is that given that we have an election that is being repeated, that institution must be insulated from political pressure. The second point, and quickly, is that why do we look like, well, we don't care? Of course, which is not true. We care, but our attitude is defined by the fact that we are ready for the election. NASA is not ready for an election. You can see an attempt to scuttle the election by bringing all manner of things. oh, we are not ready. I heard today, which is a great shame to our friends in NASA, I heard their leader saying, the children of this country don't have to do exams at the end of October. They can wait until we politic. They will not die. And I ask myself, which politician will die by not being elected? So it is this attitude of NASA that for them, the beginning and the end of everything is them winning the presidential election. For us, we are just saying, okay, fine, we won the election. The court made a judgment which we have significant and serious differences with. We respect that reluctantly, but it's an obligation. However, we are arguing that the institutions which are there in whatever challenges they have must be helped to deliver on their mandate, and whoever wants to revise anything must follow the law. So that's where we are coming from. I am shocked that the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, is telling the children of Kenya, and he's an elder in this country, he's telling the children of Kenya, we don't care about you. You wait for us with politics. You will do exams whenever you will do them.
Let's talk about the context in which the Prime Minister was, the former Prime Minister was saying this, a presidential candidate for NASA, I should say. And Ken, you know, IBC has played hardball with you on this one. It has now gazetted October 17th despite NASA's protests. So why is NASA so opposed to this October 17th date and insistent on an October 24th, which Raila Odinga proposed, which is only 7 days away? What difference do these 7 days make critically to the election?
First of all, I think Senator Kindiki has just tried to mischaracterize the comment from the Prime Minister to score cheap political points. The fact of the matter, if you look at the history of this country, and Kindiki, he is older than I, but he can remember that in 1988, President Moi postponed the elections for A-levels because of the exams for A-levels because of elections. So it happened before. But number two is we also have had elections at different times in this country. When we talk about that exam context, why is it that the IEBC rushed without consultation or engagement? How hard would it be to get two representatives of NASA, two representatives of from Jubilee, to say this is the dates you're proposing, which ones make sense? Within that 60-day period, a consultative process that wouldn't happen. Because right now, they were just bulldozed by Matiang'i.
Hold on.
Yeah?
Because
they were
my
bulldozed
question
by Matiang'i.
Substantively is this: what difference do those, even with or without the consultations, what difference would those 7 days make, in your opinion, that makes October 24th that much more?
It makes a difference because
there is no obligation under law to consult anyone.
Because consultation is actually a good practice, he knows that. But number two, the issue of the extra 7 days. Remember, the substantial ruling by the judges and the majority who made the determination to nullify the election, it will come in 21 days. So there's about 18 more days left before that comes down. Those 7 days matter because there may be some issues in that ruling that IBC has to address satisfactorily to show it's actually complying with the ruling, meeting whatever shortcomings have been mitigated. So rushing to pull the date forward, I mean, IBC could have been mischievous in law and saying there's no legal requirement, could have scheduled this election for 10 days from now and had an election within 60 days, because those are the words of before the 21-day ruling came. So let us just not poo-poo issues of consultation. Yet it seems Matiang'i, by his order and speaking as a mouthpiece of Jubilee, got what he wanted. The date he wanted is exactly the date that IBC has granted. But 1 extra week, I think, would be allowing us to literally check, has the IEBC gone ahead and followed what details came out of the rulings, and is the country really prepared? I think we all have to be concerned for the children and the welfare, the psychological tension that our children face when they're going towards exams. It's really high. I mean, it's not something to joke about. You're hearing even he's talked about Moi Girls School condoling with the children and the teachers and the families affected by that fire. the mental stress.
And yet the comments came from your presidential candidate.
But I'm telling you so. But how you engage with issues like that, we could give it a week, we could give it 2 weeks. But if you do it up front, we should not mix it up with politics.
And very quickly, the law says the fresh election should be done within 60 days. Within 60 days. Number two, there are things we can't compromise on. As we speak, the economy has been on standstill for the last 2-3 months because of politicking. Because of, again, reckless and unfortunate judgments, which I think is not founded on law, we have extended that for another 2 months. So other than the economy, the particular issue of examinations is about the future of 1 million plus of the children of Kenya. So it is wrong for my brother here to purport that C.S. Matiang'i got his way. C.S. Matiang'i was speaking on behalf of the children of Kenya who have exams, and he was saying, look guys, IEBC, I know you are independent, but please, in the national interest, consider. And those were his words. He never made demands like NASA is making demands, change this, change this. He said, as you do your thing, you're independent, but consider there is a national issue here called national examinations involving millions of children and their future and their parents. Please have that in consideration. So I don't know why, and that even underpins our theory that NASA is not ready for an election. They want to push it as far as it can go, and if possible, to dispense with it. But they cannot have their cake and eat it. They have a date with destiny in 41 days.
Right. This is what NASA has demanded, and I'll just read through the list quite quickly. A full audit of technology in full compliance with the law before this election, a review of the register of voters and polling stations. Also, you're saying that you want reports of all transaction logs of persons who used the KIMS system and those identified through complementary methods. In what way would you recommend that these audits are done, and what return time are you looking at in getting comprehensive reports for implementation by IEBC?
Two quick points before I get to that question. First of all, the issue of the economy being affected. We're all affected by the economy, but the fact that we're talking about 41 days or 60 days and the impact of the economy in those 2 months. Jubilee has been in power for over 50 months, and it's an indictment of them that Kenyans are so many living on unemployment, young people can't get jobs, and they've mismanaged the economy, and our suffering economically is not tied to just that. They're saying they're ready for the election, any election. Us as NASAB, we are insisting on being meticulous. And remember, even before the election, we went to court several times to seal loopholes to make sure we have a credible election. Then they just want bora uchaguzi. Us, we want uchaguzi bora. And that's why we are asking these tough questions, including what kind of technology is being used, where did the technology fail in the last time. This was told to us was going to be Jubilee, a very digital technological government. When it came down to telling us, can we access the server to prove that the data in the server and the usage of the server show us a transparent election, they told us things that are just poppycock. The server is in Europe, they are still asleep. France is only 2 hours ahead of us, which meaning from the time the judges ruled, open up the servers in France, the people had 26 hours, 2 extra hours. They didn't do it. On the day they were ordered to adduce a report and do specific things under court supervision, they said, we can't open the servers, the administrator is in the
and I hear
US.
You in terms of the larger context, but yeah. I beg your pardon because I am being pressed for time here. If you could speak to the specifics of how you want this audit done. At least you have made proposals. Jubilee has said they don't care, they want an election, but NASA has made proposals, and you talked about the full audit of the technology. Who should do this audit? You've asked for a full audit of the voters' roll. I beg your pardon. Are you saying KPMG should do it again? Do you want another firm? You have talked about publishing reports of transaction logs of KIMS being published for the scrutiny of parties, and then what happens? If you could just break that down for us. So
let me give you an example of the KIMS kit. You can cheat in an election with technology by having one KIMS kit that is supposed to be in Kajiado or Kisii or Kilgoris, somewhere here in Nairobi, in Kariobangi, being used to key in things. But you can check back and say, hey, that's peculiar. A KIMS kit submitting results for Kilgoris or Kajiado or somewhere else cannot be in Kariobangi, for instance. And you can get what is known as a GPRS location of that KIMS kit. Don't just tell us what was the GPS location of the polling center. We want to verify at the time of transmission, was that actually that KIMS kit, the one in that place on this?
Since the presidential election has already been nullified, what purpose would that serve for the coming October 17th poll?
Those were some of the most serious allegations of irregularities and violations of law that were there. Those were criminal offenses.
So you'd be looking at it for criminal offenses?
Yes, so to make sure we prevent that and we have a clean election. As I've said, we don't want just Bora Uchaguzi. We want Uchaguzi Bora that gives us value for money and respects the sovereignty of the people. I think trying to subvert the sovereign will of the people, cheating and cooking up an election by any means whatsoever as an official of IEBC, by negligence or by
people in court before October 17th? Because you're demanding it now.
This was actually demanded by court, and I think it's one of the things that hurt IEBC. And I think IEBC, not just IEBC, but even the third respondent who was found to be innocent. But the third respondent, Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyers, never asked for what Senator Kindike so wisely has asked for here, that the votes were recounted. Never once did they ask for the votes to be recounted. So the courts can't grant you what you didn't ask for. Their lawyers should refund them for doing a half job.
Of a court order. Fair enough.
Yes.
When it comes to the voters' roll, who should re-audit it?
The voters' roll actually should be re-audited, and IEBC should open itself up and listen to the concerns of representatives of Jubilee, of NASA.
By whom? KPMG, the same firm that did it before?
No. IEBC can work it by itself. IEBC has a capacity to do this. Just bring in the stakeholders and listen to their concerns. I'll give you an example. In Kibra constituency, Olympic Polling Center, somebody comes on the printout sheet on the wall. It tells them you're a registered voter to vote here, and that's where they wanted to vote, and they checked in the system. When they get to the machine and put their thumbprint, it tells them you're registered to vote in Siaya. At Upper Hill, somebody showed up with their finger hill. In my constituency, their name is on the list, but they're told you're registered to vote in Kilifi. Those are the type of mistakes that can be fixed in this short time.
Internally.
Yes, in consultation with the
all right, your response to the
and quickly, one, what NASA is engaged in is politics of futility. It will not help them. They started by saying they want to know who wins the tender to print ballots. And we told them we are not procurement people. We cannot interfere with IEBC in terms of procurement, and that matter ended that way. Now, what they have turned to now is technology. And all of a sudden, I am actually impressed at their mastery of very, very many issues. I know they are politicians, it's a political party, they do politics, like Jubilee. Instead, they are now technology experts, and they want to manage the election. First of all, they want to know who is employed by IEBC, how they are employed, who did the interview. They also want to print ballot papers. They also want to even understand how the gadgets work. And I want to correct the impression that Jubilee doesn't care. We care, but there are institutions and agencies empowered to do that job. It is not for us to discuss, I don't know how this gadget works, as we want to ask for votes, and then there be a system for those votes to be
So an audit of technology is not necessary.
The court said many things. Let them be done by the right people, not by political parties. Another quick one, last one is
audit of the vote register.
All those stories are in the judgment, which, by the way, we have lost the final
audit of the register. Will Jubilee take part in that? Do you want to be party to that?
If we are invited.
If you're
invited, and then quickly, Anne, because I think he talked for quite a long time. The issue of our prayers. He's saying we never asked for a recount. It was not our case, it was their case.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to have to leave it there on a cliffhanger. We're absolutely out of time, but I thank you for coming. We'll continue to watch this story as it develops, as official campaigns begin tomorrow and conclude on the 2nd of October. We're taking a short break. We're back with business and sport after